Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at some Bleacher Report trades that I found really interesting in an article that came out very, very recently, in which Bleacher Report believes every single one of the teams in these three deals wins in some way. And if you guys know the history of Bleacher Report trades, this will definitely be an interesting one. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every day, and we're on the push towards 100,000 subscribers, and you can help me get there. So consider subscribing. You can also leave a like rating on the video. It helps me out a ton. It lets me know that you're enjoying the content, and it helps get the video out on YouTube to more people as well. And you can also come hang out with me outside of these videos at twitch.tv/spolo_TD, where I stream a guaranteed 5 times per week, and in the Discord server, which is linked down in the description below. Those are all great ways to hang out with me outside of these videos and just kind of talk about anything. In the Discord server, there's gaming stuff, there's sports stuff, there's everything in between. There's an NBA trade machine suggestion, which I'm still looking for what our NBA trade machine should be for this week. So all kinds of fun stuff to take a look at if you guys have a chance. But with all those things said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so our first trade here is a 3-team deal involving the Golden State Warriors, the Indiana Pacers, and the Charlotte Hornets. The Warriors receive Myles Turner and the Hornets' 2021 second-round pick via Brooklyn. The Pacers receive Nicholas Batum, who opts in this scenario, the number 3 pick in the draft, and the Warriors' 2020 pick, that number 3 pick coming via Charlotte. And the Hornets receive Andrew Wiggins, the 2nd pick in the 2020 draft, and the Pacers' second-round pick. So let's go through all this. So what does Golden State get here? Because again, we're talking about every single team winning in the deal. What is good about this for Golden State? That Myles Turner fit is pretty awesome in Golden State as someone that can really protect the rim, can be a really good defensive big, has a little bit of floor spacing ability in there, at least from the mid-range, hasn't quite stretched it out to the 3-point line, but there's an interesting factor there for Myles Turner. He's someone that is signed for the next couple of years as well, so they don't have to worry about a salary spike for them. And he's just a really good fit as a younger player, fills that hole at the 5 spot better than any prospect could in this draft right now. The Warriors, I'm sure, look at Myles Turner as a much better immediate option for them than someone like James Wiseman at the number 2 overall pick. And in this scenario, they're giving up Andrew Wiggins and the number 2 pick in the draft, and in addition to a second-round pick, but they're getting a second-round pick back. So basically, this is the D'Angelo Russell package in exchange for Myles Turner. It's not quite the same thing because it's a future pick that's top 3 protected that they have earned from Minnesota via the D'Lo trade, but essentially this is Myles Turner for D'Angelo Russell. When you're looking at Andrew Wiggins and the number 2 pick in the draft, Myles Turner would be an awesome fit in Golden State. Now, what is Indiana getting here? Well, they're giving up Myles Turner, but they're also getting back Nick Batum, who, I mean, he's opting in here just to make the salaries work, essentially. But they're getting the number 3 pick in the draft and a 2020 second-round pick as well. This splits up the Turner-Sabonis thing, and it makes it to where, you know, they can select whoever they want at number 3 overall. If they want to go back in and select James Wiseman, they can. If they want to select Denny, they can. If somehow Anthony Edwards or LaMelo Ball falls to number 3 and they want to get a dynamic guard, they can do that as well. And again, pretty much all they're giving up here is Myles Turner, who's a really good player. But if you're in the situation that Indiana's in, maybe that 3rd pick in the draft is more valuable to you than someone like Myles Turner. And for Charlotte, I mean, they're getting back Andrew Wiggins, who, yeah, they have to pay over the next couple of years, but might be worth paying if you're Charlotte. I don't know who you're going to be using your cap space on anyway. You might as well see what you have in Andrew Wiggins, see if you can figure out something with him. This staff has done a pretty good job of developing players over the last few seasons and finding ways in which they can be effective. And I would be interested to see if they could do the same thing with Andrew Wiggins. And they're one of the few teams throughout the league that I feel like it actually makes sense to get Wiggins as a player, but they're also moving up 1 spot in this draft as well. So they're dumping Batum, they're giving up their 3rd pick, but they're moving up to the Warriors' 2nd pick, and they're getting Andrew Wiggins, who they could potentially turn into something. So I'm gonna be honest, I got to give Bleacher Report credit with this one. This I don't really think you can argue that every team is getting something here that they need. Now, maybe you could argue that Indiana doesn't want the 3rd pick in the draft and they'd rather have Myles Turner. Or you could argue that Golden State is giving up too much for Myles Turner with Andrew Wiggins and the number 2 overall pick. Again, basically the D'Angelo Russell trade package. You can make arguments throughout this, but I think if you just look at it from an overview, I think every team gets something out of this, and I would kind of argue every team wins this one. Okay, next up now is our obligatory Bradley Beal trade, and it's the Brooklyn Nets receiving Bradley Beal and Taj Gibson, the Knicks receiving John Wall, Rodion Kurucs, Washington's 9th pick in the draft, and a top 5 protected 2024 Wizards 1st round pick. While the Wizards receive Caris Levert, Jared Allen, Taurean Prince, Kevin Knox, the Knicks 2020 first via the Clippers, and the Nets 2021st via the Philadelphia 76ers. Okay, so Brooklyn obviously is getting their quote-unquote third star here. They're getting Bradley Beal. They've got Kyrie, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, maybe the best three-man offensive trio in the entire league, arguably. I don't know how that team is going to expect to defend, but they get their third star, which is something that has been rumored for this team. It's been something that maybe, the wheels have been turning on there in Brooklyn ever since Kyrie and Kevin Durant showed up, getting them a quote-unquote third star, and they get one here in Bradley Beal. Meanwhile, the Knicks are giving up, players like Kevin Knox. They're giving up a first-round pick, and they're taking on the big salary of John Wall, essentially is what's happening here. They're getting John Wall. They're getting Rodion Kurucs, who I still think can be an interesting player. They're getting the Wizards' 9th pick in the draft, who they're giving up in order to not only dump John Wall, but also get Bradley Beal. And they're getting a future top 5 protected pick from Washington to take on the John Wall salary. This trade is absolutely nuts. And then Washington is getting basically a handful of young players and 2 first-round picks. So you've got the Knicks pick that is actually the Clippers, and you've got the Nets pick that is actually the Sixers. So these aren't high-value first overall picks. And Washington is giving up the 9th pick and the 2024 future pick here. But they are getting Caris Levert, Jared Allen, Taurean Prince, and Kevin Knox. The team that doesn't win this deal for me is Washington. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Like, you can look at it and say, okay, Brooklyn gets Bradley Beal. Like, even if you don't love the defensive fit, like, value-wise, I mean, you're talking about giving up, Caris Levert, Jared Allen, Kurucs to the first-round pick, and Taurean Prince, and you're getting Bradley Beal back, then that's easily get the best deal out of this, in my opinion. Maybe it's not a great fit, but just in terms of value, that's a great job there by Brooklyn. The Knicks, I guess, are trying to capitalize on anything John Wall has left potentially, and taking on that big contract. They're the one team that could potentially, take on someone like John Wall, take on someone like Russell Westbrook and absorb them into their cap space and just try and get a good player. And they're getting the 9th pick in the draft and that way in the future 2024 first as well, that I know is top 5 protected, but still. And then you look at Washington. Like, I love Caris Levert. I think Jared Allen's a really good player. Taurean Prince, Kevin Knox, big. But Bradley Beal by himself, I don't know, it's weird because I guess they're viewing John Wall as a negative asset here. And because it feels like Washington is giving up more than they should have to in this deal, but it's because they're dumping John Wall, they're getting rid of that contract. But I just feel like if you're trading away those two guys, and specifically if you're trading away Bradley Beal, shouldn't you be getting more here? I mean, I don't know, but they're getting Caris Levert and Jared Allen and 2 firsts, even though they're not great firsts. I think it's close, but I think Washington's losing this deal. I think for them, it makes more sense to maybe wait on the John Wall thing, see, because his value is not going to get lower than this, right? Like, John Wall's value can't get lower than it is right now in a trade. You might as well see if he can play himself into some more value, see what your team looks like with a healthy John Wall and Bradley Beal out there once again, and then go from there. I personally feel like you might as well just eat the Wall contract if it's bad. Like, if he comes back and doesn't play well, just eat the Wall contract and trade Beal for something if you don't think it's going to work out, and maybe trade John Wall down the road when he becomes an expiring contract. But I feel like if you took the John Wall part out of this and you just tried to trade Bradley Beal, I feel like they could get better value because they're trading Beal, Wall, their 9th pick, a future 2024 first, top 5 protected, all of those things in exchange for Caris Levert, Jared Allen. I mean, that's pretty much it. 2 first-round picks. I mean, Taurean Prince isn't really anything, and Kevin Knox isn't really anything. That seems like an L to me for Washington. And then last up now is a trade meant to get Giannis Antetokounmpo some help in Milwaukee. The Bucks receive Victor Oladipo and Robert Covington. The Pacers receive Eric Bledsoe, Ersan Ilyasova, and their own 2020 first-round pick returned from Milwaukee, while the Rockets receive Dante DiVincenzo, Doug McDermott, the Bucks' top 8 protected 2024 first, and the Bucks' 2022 second-round pick via Indiana. I'll say straight off the bat, like this fit of Oladipo and Robert Covington in Milwaukee is really, really interesting to me. I like that fit. I know Covington's been traded a lot over the last couple of years, but I love the idea of having those 2 guys in Milwaukee. But that doesn't mean that the other teams in the deal are getting good value. Let's take a look. So Indiana, in exchange for Victor Oladipo, are getting Eric Bledsoe, who I don't really think anybody wants, Ersan Ilyasova, and they're getting their own pick back in 2020, which isn't all that high of a pick. So I don't think I love that Oladipo return. People continue to put Eric Bledsoe in trades because he's the one guy that can be moved salary-wise, or it makes a lot of sense. I don't think teams really are all that excited about Eric Bledsoe. Like, yeah, he's a really good defensive player, an all-NBA caliber defensive player. But when you get in the playoffs, you might as well be expecting 5 points per game from him because it just doesn't work. I don't think teams are excited about Eric Bledsoe, but that's just me. So I don't think this is great value for Indiana. I've already talked about the Oladipo thing at length, that I don't think now is the time to trade him. It's the lowest point his value is going to be, and this feels like a low value trade for me for Indiana in exchange for Oladipo. Unless they think he's completely washed and they just want to get Bledsoe and their own first-round pick back, I don't know. For Houston, though, they're getting DiVincenzo, who I really like. I think could be a good player. McDermott, who can help them as a shooter. And then they're getting a future first from Milwaukee, which they certainly need to try and reload this roster with picks moving forward, and that second-round pick as well. The only way that this would make sense is if the Rockets have already started to break down the rest of their roster. If they've already started to trade away, potentially James Harden or Russell Westbrook or whatever. Like, if they're already making moves to reset this roster, then trading away someone like Robert Covington would make sense to me. But even as much as I like DiVincenzo and that top 8 pick in 2024, who knows what that'll be like. If they're going to keep their roster, Robert Covington's going to be a big part of it, and I don't see a point in trading him away. So I think Milwaukee gets a great deal here, and I think that's where the trade construction started, and then they went from there and tried to figure it out. But I don't think the other two teams are really getting a whole lot here. So ultimately, when we looked at these 3 trades, I think the first one was really, really interesting, and I think every team actually did win that. The other two on much more shaky ground for me personally. And yeah, there you have it. That is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.